The new American dream is to make enough money so that you can move out of America, whether that be becoming financially independent and not having to worry about money, or being able to make money remotely online or through your own businesses without having to depend on your location. It seems like more and more people are trying to do this. I know that it feels a little wanderlust, and I know that there's a lot of escapism mentality behind it, but that's the truth. It feels like America's becoming unlivable. It feels like there's more and more problems happening in the US. And now that people can work remotely and make money online, more and more people seem to be wanting to do this. I know that it's a big reason why I want to do it. That, and also the idea of having to just work the same job forever in order to pay your bills and have your material things that you think are what you need and want because everyone tells you that's what you need to do, doesn't feel right anymore to a lot of us. It feels like we just work all day to pay for our bills. It seems like our money in the US just isn't going as far as it used to, with inflation and the way that prices are for rent and everything just being so expensive now. It really feels like making $100,000 a year doesn't mean shit anymore when you live in America. I know that some people will argue and say that, well, you can live in some rural areas or you can live in less populated places, but nobody wants to fucking live there. My wife was raised in a small town. We actually relocated there for a whole year right before we went to Europe the first time. And we hated it because there's nothing to do. That's why people that live in those places don't make a lot of money unless you work remotely, because there isn't an industry, there isn't things to go out and do. When you're in a small town, there's like 2 restaurants and a gas station, and then you got to drive 45 minutes to get to anything that you want to do. But the thing is, the gas prices are through the roof too. So then if you do that, you're putting a bunch of wear and tear on your car and you're spending a bunch of money on gas just so that you can do activities that you would have available to you if you were in a more populated area. But if you live in a more populated area, you got to pay a premium for that. And rent and mortgages are ridiculous right now, especially considering that it's cheaper to rent a place than it is to buy a place, because interest rates on houses are just at the highest they've ever been. And as being someone who's previously owned a home and feeling now with a 6-figure salary, making $130,000, $140,000 a year, I can't afford to buy a house that costs more than $400,000. And you might be like, oh, well, maybe you just need to not spend so much. Maybe you need to learn how to manage your money better. And like, dude, I do. I know how to manage my money. I am in a good position financially, mostly because I choose not to purchase a home because it's too high and we can't really buy the house that we want in the location that we want. And we're renting just so that we can live in an area that we like. But that's super expensive because it's a medium / high cost of living area now. And it feels like everywhere is a medium to high cost of living area now, if it's anywhere worth living. And then on top of that, it just feels like, what does America have to offer anymore? It's a great place to be a business owner. It's a great place for capitalism. I think capitalism is a good thing, but at the same time, it feels like we're at last stage capitalism now. It's like people can't afford to buy houses. People can't afford to live. People can't afford to pay rent. People can't afford food. They can't afford gas for their cars. It feels wrong in so many ways. So then it makes sense why so many of us feel like we need to get out. I know I'm not the only person, but I also know that there's a lot of other people that don't feel this way. And I see it in the comments and I understand where they're coming from. But at the same time, it's that George Carlin saying that I've heard a lot of people say before. The reason why it's called the American dream is that you need to be asleep to believe it. And the more I feel like I'm becoming red-pilled about what America really is, the more I feel like I want to get out. And I know that many of us feel that way. It's so crazy that if you would have asked me 5 years ago, what was my dream? It would have been to make $130,000 a year and feel like I had extra money and feel like upper middle class. And I worked so hard to achieve that. And I know that it sounds like I'm coming from a place of privilege. I know that it sounds like I don't understand the struggles, but I do. I get the struggles. I grew up with an alcoholic mother. I didn't have my own bedroom until I was 18 years old. I lived in a 500 square foot efficiency in the back of a duplex. My mom had the bedroom and my room was the living room until I was 17 years old. So like, I get the struggle. I get like being broke. I never made over $100,000 a year up until just recently. That's a new thing for me. But here I am feeling like it's not enough. So then what's my option, right? Work extra hard, find another job maybe that pays me a little bit more. Eventually I'll get salary capped. Even if I make $200,000 a year, a $200,000 a year job now feels like what $100,000 a year job would have been 10 years ago. And that's actually probably accurate because of inflation and the way that prices have just gone up. And it sucks because a lot of it is corporations gouging us, trying to make more money, and they're profiteering from inflation and using that as an excuse. So then when I look at all this and I feel like I've been red pilled in the matrix, and I feel like I'm looking at things for what they really are rather than what people say it is or want me to believe it is, I think, well, what the hell are we doing here? What is keeping us here, right? Like, I don't want to send my kids to public school because our school system feels every day on the news is a new school shooting. The education that they're getting is ridiculous because the truth is they maybe get an hour of education and the rest is just babysitting for your kids. I'd rather have my kids learn at home with my wife and have her teach them. At least if they're going to be indoctrinated, I'll indoctrinate them with some beliefs and education that I think is worth them having, not some bullshit that they're going to teach them at a job to be a switch flipper or cashier, somebody who can read the user manual or the rule book and doesn't have a single ounce of creative thinking in them. Like, that's not what I want to do to my kids. It feels so stressful even thinking about sending them to school, right? So our education system sucks. We can't afford to pay for anything here. What's the point of staying? I can make money online. I've already proven that I can do that. It's not going to replace my salary right away. I've been able to do that part-time. I also have developed skills that I've worked on for the last 7 years to be able to work from anywhere in the world. One of the big reasons why I taught myself how to code and wanted to learn software development was because that it's a job that you can do remotely. So like, that's still an option for me. And then we think like, well, our friends and family are here. And that's like the biggest thing that keeps us rooted. And that's the biggest thing that keeps us in a certain location. That's why we live where we live, is because we're close to friends and family. Another reason why we don't want to go and move to the middle of nowhere, that some place that's cheap and I can buy a McMansion. We were looking at in Oklahoma at one point. We have some friends that live there, and not to shit on Oklahoma, they have a beautiful house. And I was looking there because it was like, all right, $400,000, that can get me a decent house. You know what $400,000 gets me where I am at right now in the Pacific Northwest? A shack that needs so much work and repair. It doesn't make any sense for us to get in debt and to put 20% down at an 8% interest in order to pay for a shack that we don't want to live in just to be around our friends and family. So after a lot of thinking and trying it once before and then learning from our mistakes and figuring out what it is that we want to do, we're going to try it again. And we are going to keep trying to escape. And the reason why we want to escape so much is because it just feels like that's the new way to do things. That's the new American dream, is to make enough money as an American, have American citizenship, to then be able to travel anywhere else in the world. And if shit goes wrong, I guess we can come back here. I know that feels like, oh, well, you want to leave your country and you want to go to all these other places, but you'll come back here if things get rough. Well, yeah, sure, of course, because our safety is more important at that point. But the truth is that probably nothing's going to happen. Everywhere we look and everywhere we plan on going seems like super, super safe. All the research we do, we keep looking, and everything seems so much safer than the United States. And I know that you can take like 5 cities out of the equation in the US, and the US would be super safe. But I see the local news. I see what's going on just down the street from where I am, and I see that it's not good. I see that there's people being killed and robbed. There's home invasions and carjackings. Yeah, statistically, it might only be a small percentage that it happens to, but it'd be silly to think like that stuff isn't happening. And I grew up in the ghetto. I've got friends that are serving life in prison. I've got friends that are dead. I was arrested a bunch of times as a juvenile. I had friends that were doing home invasions and carjackings when they were 17 years old. So I understand how dangerous it can really be in this country. And then I go and I look at these places that we're planning on traveling to, and it's like, oh, you might get pickpocketed. You might get scammed. And here I am thinking in America, like, dude, I'll go into Costco or Walmart, worry some psycho's going to show up in there with a rifle and shoot up the place. I don't know. It's super stressful. This feels like a rant. It's kind of like where we're at. And the more we think about it, the more it feels like it's the right thing to do. And the more it feels like it makes sense to do this. Call it escapism, call it being wanderlust, call it whatever you want to call it. I don't care. But I know that whatever the other option is, like staying here, just working the same job until I'm old and fat and can't move because I'm broken from sitting at a desk all day, going to meetings I don't want to be in, working on stuff I don't want to work on, just so that I can pay a mortgage on a place I don't really care to live in, so that my family can have a good life. My family will have a good life wherever we are, as long as we're together and we're happy. There's more to life than just working all day to pay your bills and to pay for your healthcare and to pay for your gas and to pay for your car and to pay for your rent. I don't feel like that's what I want to do anymore. And I think that a lot of people are starting to feel this. I think that a lot of people are starting to wake up to the reality of what we've been told to do our whole lives. Lucky for me, I don't have student loan debt. That would make things so much worse. I see people who are getting into so much debt, you can't even get a job with a degree. All that is from doing what we've been told to do. Even when I was a head kid, when I had no future ahead of me, right as I was dropping out of high school in the 9th grade, I remember people telling me, teachers telling me like, oh, you're not going to be able to go to college. You're going to have to get a GED. You're going to be a garbage man. And it's like, well, shit, garbage collectors seem to be making pretty good money nowadays. UPS drivers make 140 grand a year in our union. My buddies that are electricians or work in construction make more money than I do as a developer, or just as much. And they're union and they have a bunch of benefits and seem to have a good gig. Those were like the loser jobs, and now those trade jobs are going to be like the next learn to code wave is going to be those trade jobs where people are going to be telling you that you should become a plumber or an electrician or a carpenter, because that's going to be where the money's at here pretty soon once AI takes all of our jobs. And I don't know. All I'm saying is what I've been saying for a while, because I said it years ago in a video a long time ago, where I feel like the American dream is bullshit. It still feels that way. I still feel like that on a regular basis. I don't want to be ungrateful for being an American, because I know that there's a lot of great benefits to that. And one of them is actually being able to leave and come back and being able to travel as an American, because some countries you can't do that. My mom's an immigrant from Cuba, communist country. Like I get how it can be on the other end. I understand where she's coming from, where she feels like what I'm doing is a mistake. I understand where people are coming from when they say that America is great, because I think there are some great things about America. But the current state of the American dream itself, it feels like it doesn't exist anymore. And I feel like I've reached the mountaintop of that American dream. I've worked my ass off to get to where I'm at, and I understand the concept of the American dream, but it's time for us to make a change and live our own version of the American dream, which is to make enough money to do whatever the hell we want, anywhere we want, and always come back if we need to, I guess, which we probably will, because this is home. We just kind of need a break from it at the moment. Sometimes you got to leave home in order to get homesick. But I noticed from the first time that we traveled, I'm homesick for going back to the traveling. I don't really feel like staying here right now. Neither does my wife, and neither do my kids. So why the hell not? I'm going to live the new version of the American dream until the American dream is revived and becomes what it's supposed to be. Because right now, it feels like we've been sold a lie. All right, with all that said, there's my rant for today. If you enjoyed this video, or if you have your own opinion on what you think of the American dream, let me know in the comments below, because I am interested to see what other people have to say. I have a good idea that it's going to be a mixed bag of opinions, but that's what makes America so awesome, right? And that's what makes the internet so awesome, is that we can have these discussions and people can feel however they want to feel and do whatever the hell they want to do and say whatever the hell they want to say, right? All right, with all that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.